Sometimes when out hiking, it doesn't go according to plan. You get injured, your gear fails, or maybe a bridge is damaged and you end up taking a longer route than planned. So it is good to be prepared for the unexpected when out hiking. So today it is all about the 5 backup gear you need based on the survival rule of 3. Hi and welcome to a new episode, and if you're new to the channel, this channel is all about hiking, gear reviews, tips and tricks and backpacking thoughts. And if that is something you like, don't forget to subscribe. When out hiking, we are most of the time on a trail and not too far from civilization. Most of us anyway. I mean, we are not exploring but experiencing nature. So, it is easy sometimes to forget that you are most of the time by yourself, out in the wilderness, up on the mountain and such, and it can be a bit tricky to get help quick or to be rescued. In a worst case scenario, you might be left on your own for a couple of days, or that you have to make it to a pickup point. So, even if we are hikers and like to bring only the essentials, it is also good to think about the things that might happen and bring a little bit of backup for some items. Today I will present to you the backup gear you need based on the survival rule of 3. You can only survive 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without a shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Well, maybe this is not applicable to us hikers, maybe. I don't know, 3 minutes without air. Well, maybe if you use a 3-season tent during winter time without ventilation on top and the snow blocks the way of fresh air getting into your tent, yeah, that might be possible. So choose the right gear for this season and do open that ventilation for good airflow. And also, if you're taking a swim after a long day of hiking maybe, well, anyway, if you're taking a swim, make sure it is safe. The water up in the mountains can be pretty cold. But no backup gear in this category. 3 hours without a shelter refers to keeping you dry and warm and protect you from cold and bad weather, and to avoid hypothermia or just to protect you from the heat. Luckily for us hikers, we have that one covered, right? But gear can fail. So the first piece of backup gear that we need to bring is first aid for your gear. Like a couple of seal nylon patches to fix the hole in your tent, and maybe some tape to fix a broken tent pole, or some spare guy lines and some pegs. All which is a good idea to bring a little bit of extras of. But even if a tent pole break or you get a big hole in your tent or whatever can happen to your tent or hammock and you don't have the necessary patches or tape to fix it, you can still use it as a temporary shelter for you to stay protected from the heat, the cold and the wet long enough to get yourself to safety. You just have to improvise. And that leads us to backup gear you need number 2, a spare lighter. And not only to be able to light your stove if the piezo breaks. No, making a fire is like the survival tip number 1. It is a good way to stay dry and warm, and also for people to be able to see you from a long distance if they are looking for you. So do bring at least 1 spare lighter or maybe a fire steel to be able to make a fire should you need to. Now, this is serious and something that you need to be prepared for on all your hikes, because 3 days ain't much. The third backup gear you need is something to purify water with if your primary one fails. It can be as easy as to forget to put your water filter inside your sleeping bag during the night and the temperature drops below 0 and the filter freezes and is therefore useless. Sure, in many places out in nature, the water is okay to drink as it is, and especially in a survival situation. But why risk the chance of getting sick, like with diarrhea and stomachache, and to end your hike sooner than expected when it is as easy as to filter your water? My primary gear to filter water is the Ketadine B-free filter, and my backup is to boil the water, and therefore I always bring extra fuel. But you can just as well use purification tablet, another filter or other chemicals, but do pick one and bring that as a backup. Other than that, also do prepare for the area where you are hiking. If close to the ocean, perhaps it can be difficult to find a fresh water source, and if hiking in the desert, well, I haven't done that yet, but I can imagine water is even more difficult to find there. So bring enough water bottles and fill them up when you can. Now, this is something many people do prepare themselves for, and of course to bring a bit of extra food seems like a very good idea, because nobody wants to go hungry, right? But
hello!
3 weeks is a very long time, and probably not the reason you will end up dead or damaged for life. No, you're more likely to end your days because of hypothermia, accident, injuries, thirst, than to starve your death out on the trail. But of course, common sense rule number 1 and backup gear number 4. Bring enough food and maybe a little bit of extra just to be sure. Like 1 or 2 Snickers bar or so. I would say that is enough extra food as a safety measure. That also leads us to backup gear number 5. A first aid kit. Always bring a good first aid kit. And not only 1 band-aid or 1 compress, bring a couple of them to be able to treat multiple wounds and also to change them after a while to keep the wounds clean. Like I said, you will probably not starve to death out on the trail, so see to it that you can handle small and bigger wounds when out on the trail, and you will be safer than if you bring nothing. The backup gear you need and what I recommend you to bring just in case something happens when you're out hiking and to stay safe out on the trail is a spare lighter, a secondary water purification system, a little bit of spare food, and a good first aid kit for you and your gear. That was 5 pieces of backup gear you need based on the survival rule of 3. And if you want to add more gear to this list, just add a comment down below for us all to read. If you liked today's episode, take a look at these recommendations on my other videos. Also do hit like and subscribe and turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I hope also to see you again soon. Next week, actually. Bye bye for now.